Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Week 10 Commish Report, where I break down the week that was, preview the week to come, and we'll also go over the standings and take a quick look at the current playoff picture in the league for which I am the commissioner for, called the League of Shiva. So a couple of big upsets this week are the bigger stories. However, it was kind of a generic week in fantasy football, in my opinion. Nothing that really jumps right out as huge performances or huge weeks. The one interesting item from Week 10 was that all of the rematches that I spoke about in the last Commish report, each of the teams were looking to revenge from losing the first time that they matched up, and then wound up pulling off the win this time after losing the first time. But anyways, we'll get to that and more here in just a moment, and we'll start off by taking a look at the Week 10 matchups. The Week 10 matchup of the week would have to go to the Philly Cheesesteaks beating my Big Fat 77s 120-99. Big upset there. The reason I chose this matchup as the matchup of the week was not because it was my matchup, but in the grand scheme of things in Week 10, Philly Cheesesteaks pulled off a victory over my Big Fat 77, snapping a 7-week winning streak for me. Jeff provided me with my second loss of the season, and it's only my first loss within the Shiva North Division, as my only other loss came from the Dictatorship in Week 2. Kudos to the Philly Cheesesteaks, however, as they pull off the upset on the heels of a huge unexpected performance from his wide receiver, Brandon Marshall, getting him a whopping 30 points. He also had pretty good performances from Alfred Morris on Thursday night, who got him 18 points in a losing effort on Thursday night of Week 10. Since that 18-point lead on Thursday night, Philly Cheesesteaks never gave up their lead. In fact, my Big Fat 77s did not necessarily have a horrible week per se, but 99 points was not enough as the big 30-point performance from Brandon Marshall was more than the difference maker in this matchup. I still managed to get 42 points from Peyton Manning and 17 from Julius Thomas, but those were the only two players that, first of all, had double-digit figures at all for me and really did anything spectacular for me at all. And it just wasn't enough. Jeff also, I was going to say that I had 7 of my remaining 9 players with less than 9 points, or fewer than 9 points. Jeff also made his revenge from his week 1 loss to me, and we have split the season series 1-1. With the win, Jeff's Philly Cheesesteaks moved to 6-4 on the season, as my Big Fat 77s fall to 8-2. Moving on to what I would call the poop matchup of the week, would definitely have to go to the Nocho Cincos beating the Mile High Social Club 89-61. The score and the fact that that these are two of the worst teams in the league make this the poop matchup of the week. However, surprisingly, with the win, my mother Deb's Nocho Cinco still manages to keep their playoff hopes alive. If she wins the remaining 3 games of the regular season and gets help from the rest of the league, she could sneak into the 6th spot of the playoffs. With Dan losing yet again, however, the Mile High Social Club, now 4 in a row lost, he is now the Sacco team in the league. And if I'm doing my math properly, if he loses one more matchup, he will be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So he needs to win out the rest of his games. If he does so, he will have a 5-8 record and would need considerable help as well in order to see a playoff spot. However, the matchup itself, Nocho Cinco gets decent numbers from her running back core as Marshawn Lynch and Pierre Thomas combine to get her 48 points. If she gets a touchdown or two from Larry Fitzgerald, Matt Forte, or Tony Gonzalez, she would have been over 100 points and could have potentially really blown out the Mile High Social Club. But she did have her best team on the field for Week 10, and those players that I just mentioned had 4 or fewer points each. Another tough week for Dan as he moves to 7-9. He had 7 of his 9 active players getting 6 or fewer points, including a lowly 2 points from his quarterback, Colin Kaepernick. These two teams also split the season series 1-1, as Nocho Cinco gets her revenge on Dan. Nocho Cinco now moves up to 3-7 on the season, and the Mile High Social Club moving to a Sacco-worthy 2-8 record. The upset of the week can't believe this. Yet again, the Binghamton wins 88-83, this time over the Google This All the Way. I just have to say that in my Week 8 Commish report, I did mention that my brother John's Binghamton team was basically a bye week for anyone who played him. This after he had a record of 1-7 at that point in the season. It seemed as though he couldn't get by almost any team in the league. Since I said that, though, he's now won 2 weeks in a row, upsetting the Philly Cheesesteaks in Week 9, and then in Week 10, upsetting the Google This All the Way, managed by my brother Chris. Week 10 was Binghamton's bye week hell, however, as he had quarterback Tom Brady and running back Stephen Ridley on bye weeks in Week 10. It didn't matter, though, since even though it wasn't necessarily a pretty win, it was still a win and an upset of a top-tier team in our league. Binghamton's top scorer in Week 10 was Demaryius Thomas, who he started in his swing spot and got him 33 points. His second top performer was his kicker. That's right, Hauschka got him a huge 19 points, 3 from point-after touchdowns and an additional 16 from field goals, which is a phenomenal score from a kicker. The 7 remaining players on his team only had 9 or fewer points, so Chris actually had a chance to come back and win this game on Monday night. He had running back Mike James for Tampa Bay playing on Monday night against the Dolphins. However, James winds up suffering a season-ending broken ankle early in the game. Those two teams split. These two teams, the Binghamton and Google This All the Way, split their season series as well at 1-1. And with his second win in a row, Binghamton is now 3-7 on the season, getting his revenge with a 1 point from the 1 point loss in Week 7 to Google This All the Way, who now fall to 6-4. Moving on to what I would call the blowout of the week would definitely have to be the Dictatorship beating the Hump Day Camels 122-79. Yet again, a team gets its revenge as Dictatorship wins their 5th straight and manages to split the season series against Hump Day Camels, winning 122-79 after losing to Hump Day Camels in Week 5. As I said, since Week 5, he's won 5 straight matchups and is now tied for the best record in the Shiva South Division. With his head-to-head matchup against Timmy's Some Things You Can Unsee Bros earlier in the season, Doug actually has now taken over the second seed in the playoff picture as the top team in the division. Doug arguably is the comeback team of the year thus far with the winning streak he has and the way that his division is shaping up. Also, Doug had some stellar performances from quarterback Nick Foles, who got him 32 points, and also got 20 points from Calvin Johnson and 17 points from his Panthers defense. Linda's Hump Day Camels had only 3 players in double-digit figures, and 6 out of her 9 players with 9 or fewer points. With this loss, she falls to 4-6 on the year, and still has a chance at the postseason. Doug, with the win, moves to 6-4 on the season, and as I stated, has taken over the second seed in the playoffs. Finally, the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros taking out the New Hampshire Madmen 123-92. This was the only interdivision matchup of Week 10, and the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros, managed by Timmy, has fallen out of the top seed in the Shiva South, but is still tied for the best record in the division. However, even though he beat New Hampshire Madmen, who have now dropped 2 straight matchups, because of the way this league is shaping up, he has dropped from the second seed, which goes to the best team in the division, all the way down to the 4th overall seed, which is still a playoff team. However, since there are 4 teams with either identical records or better, and because of the division records, he's dropped down to 4th. He needs to come up with at least 1 or 2 more wins to keep his playoff hopes alive, but it could go to anybody in the South Division. So the final 3 weeks of the regular season will be interesting to watch nonetheless. There could be a colossal shift in the standings over the course of the next few weeks. Dave's New Hampshire Madmen didn't have a horrible week, getting great performances from quarterback Russell Wilson, who got him 27, and also got 21 from Golden Tate. These performances weren't enough to overcome the 31-point deficit caused by Timmy, as Timmy got 46 from Drew Brees, 28 from A.J. Green, and that wound up being the difference maker in this one. With the loss, New Hampshire Madmen fall to 6-4, and the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros improve to 6-4. So, that completes our look at the Week 10 matchups. Now we'll take a look at how Week 11 is shaping up so far. Since I'm actually posting this on Friday this week, we already have points in Week 11 recorded from the Thursday night games last night. And we'll start off by going over the teams that actually have points on the board so far this week, and that would first of all be the Some Things You Can on Seabros at 6-4, taking on the Mile High Social Club at 2-8. Right now, Timmy's Some Things You Can on Seabros have a 20-14 lead. This is a rematch from Week 5, where Timmy's Some Things You Can on Seabros won 106-76. Timmy got 20 points from Chris Johnson last night and is out to an early lead as Dan's Mile High Social Club gets 15 points from tight end Delaney Walker. With a loss, Mile High Social Club will be all but eliminated from the postseason, and he will try to bounce back after dropping 4 straight matchups. Timmy will look to make it 2 in a row, and if he does, we'll be watching how the Dougtatorship does, and we'll be hoping that Doug loses so he can squeak back into that second seed in the playoffs. Google This All the Way with a 15-8 lead over my Big Fat 77s. Google This All the Way at 6-4. I'm at 8-2. This is also a rematch from Week 5, where my Big Fat 77s beat the Google This All the Way team 139-129. Chris will be looking for redemption from that loss, and both him and I lost in Week 10, and we'll be looking to turn that back around this week. Google This All the Way out to an early lead after getting 15 points on Thursday night from his kicker, Adam Vinatieri. I wound up with 8 points from my wide receiver swing spot, Kendall Wright. And this will be an interesting matchup to keep an eye on, since Chris was forced to bench Romo on his bye week and go with Oakland's quarterback Terrell Pryor as his backup. With a win, my Big Fat 77s would clinch the first playoff berth in this league. And if Chris wins, he'll be eyeballing the top seed in the league in the last 2 weeks. So a very important matchup there. Moving on, the Hump Day Camels with an early 17-0 lead over the Binghamtons. This is the only other matchup that already has points posted from Thursday night. Linda's Hump Day Camels have 17 on the board, yes, but that was from 3 different players collectively. So she's off to a rough start this week, as she will have to make up some points, having only gotten 4 points from Colts defense, 4 points from her wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, and 9 points from her kicker Rob Baronis. She went with Roethlisberger this week and as her starting quarterback instead of Andrew Luck. Luck would have gotten her 18 points last night, but she will be hoping that Roethlisberger gets at least that or better on Sunday. Binghamton looks to make it 3 in a row, and both of these teams are hoping to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. This is the only interdivision matchup this week, and it will be the first and last time that these two teams meet in the regular season. The Dougtatorship taking on the Nocho Cincos. Neither team had any players on Thursday night, so the 6-4 Dougtatorship taking on my mother's Nocho Cincos at 3-7. Sunday afternoon is when this one will actually kick off. Dougtatorship will be looking to make it 6 straight wins, and will be looking to hold on to that second playoff seed and the top of the South Division. This is a rematch of Week 4 when Nocho Cinco actually upset Doug and went on to win 152-91. Doug will be looking for revenge for that tough loss back in Week 4, as my mother Deb's Nocho Cinco will look to keep her playoff hopes alive, and in all reality needs a win here in Week 11 in order to do so. And the final matchup of the week would be the 6-4 Madmen, New Hampshire Madmen, taking on the 6-4 Philly Cheesesteaks. As I said, a battle of the 6-4s. Also, this is a battle of two of the 3 teams tied for second place in the North Division. Neither team has points posted yet this week, and will also kick off their matchup on Sunday afternoon. I know I personally will be keeping a close eye on this matchup, as a win by either team moves them that much closer to the top seed in the North Division and dethroning me. Because of the very tight records in the North Division, this matchup also has a lot of implications for either team in regards to playoff hopes. Both teams are currently in line to be in the playoffs. However, a loss could actually prove fatal down the road for this. So this is also a very important matchup. This matchup actually has the potential of being the marquee matchup of Week 11. New Hampshire Madmen will look to snap their 2-week losing streak, as Jeff's Philly Cheesesteaks will look to make it 2 wins in a row after beating the Big Fat 77s in Week 10. So that will wrap up the preview of Week 11. Now it's time to take a quick look at the current standings and a look at the playoff picture. Thanks for joining me for this week's Commish Report, and be sure to tune in next week as we do it all again and start really getting into playoff talks as of next week, so it should be interesting. Thanks again for watching, and here come the standings. Okay, the Shiva North Division remains tightly contested. My Big Fat 77s remain atop the North Division and the league with a record of 8-2. A three-way tie for second place at 6-4 for Google This All the Way, New Hampshire Madmen, and the Philly Cheesesteaks. In Week 11, this should surely reshape and rehash this three-way tie. Binghamton still has a slight chance of playoff hopes, currently sitting at a record of 3-7, but really needs to keep his winning streak alive in order to keep a hold of these playoff hopes. In the South, the records aren't as good as the North. However, it is still tightly contested as the Dugtatorship slips into the second playoff seed, even though he's tied at 6-4 with the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros. Hump Day Camels are hanging on with a 4-6 record, as Nocho Cinco also hangs on with a 3-7 record. The Mile High Social Club moved down to the Sacco position in the league with a lowly 2-8 record. It just goes to show you that in fantasy football, anything is possible, even if you're under 500 for your record. The next few weeks will be extremely interesting to see how the playoffs shape up. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the playoff picture now. It's the same 6 teams in the playoff picture from Week 9. However, after Week 10, the seedings have changed slightly. The Dugtatorship moving from the 5 seed and taking over the 2nd seed from the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros, who dropped from the 2nd seed to the 4th seed. The reason Dugtatorship gets the edge is because his head-to-head record against Timmy's Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros is so far 1-0. They meet again in Week 13 to wrap up the regular season. New Hampshire Madmen falling from the 4th seed all the way down to the number 6 seed, as Philly Cheesesteaks move up from number 6 to number 5. The only team that didn't move in the standings was Google This All the Way. As it stands, they are holding on to the 3rd overall playoff seed. If the playoffs were to start today, the 2 teams on bye would be My Big Fat 77s and the Dugtatorship. The 2 matchups would be the number 3 seeded Google This All the Way versus the number 6 New Hampshire Madmen, and the number 4 seeded Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros taking on the number 5 Philly Cheesesteaks. Yet again, 4 playoff teams from the North Division and 2 from the South. That's it for the Week 10 Commish Report. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.